Yeah, I'm excited too because I think we have hands down the biggest beauty there is in Edmonton. And I tell everybody, if this guy was on Wayne Gretzky's Oilers, he'd be an urban legend with all of those boys. All right. So without further ado, I introduce you to a two-time WHL champion and a Memorial Cup champion with the Kamloops Blazers in 94 and 95, represented Team Canada at the Spengler Cup, drafted 63rd overall in the 1994 NHL draft by the New York Islanders, over 650 NHL games played, over 800 PIMs, TSN 1260 hockey analyst and host, ranked one of the best teammates by anybody you ever ask who's been in a room with him, and one of the biggest attractions at the West Edmonton Mall when he's strutting his stuff. My guy, Jason Strudwick. Struddy, did I do you justice with that intro?
Yeah, I think the proudest part is when I wear the tight jeans at West Hampton Mall. You know, like that's
Yes.
my wife. She keeps getting them tighter and tighter for me, and she loves it. Right? I can't. I honestly, I can't go up. I can't walk in front of her on the stairs because it just distracts her so much. So I have to walk behind her. I go backwards. I moonwalk up the stairs. So yeah, no, it's perfect.
So during like this quarantine, have you been like just strutting around with like the neck breakers at home just to like keep them in the loop, or like how's it been going?
Yeah, so my I have three kids and my wife, and we're in this house, and we just got a puppy, and everyone's tired of hearing my same old jokes and my same moves, and like they're just it's like we're all in the same boat, right? It doesn't matter if you're with your girlfriend or boyfriend or mom or whatever. We've all heard everything a thousand times. So I'm trying to get new material. So my youngest son and I are trying to beatbox, but it's not going very well. I'm awful, and don't tell him, but he's actually worse than I
Oh
am.
man.
Okay, we're gonna kick it off. We're gonna take you back to Kamloops. You played on one of the most dominant CHL dynasties in hockey history, and looking at that roster, you had the likes of Tucker, Doan, Tyson Nash, Ginla, Lukowicz, Baumgartner. What was it like for a young kid to play in that dynasty? Be the talk of the town. And did you see a lot of those teammates that you had? Could you almost envision them being NHL superstars, and maybe take us through what that experience was like in Kamloops?
Yeah, and I gotta kind of take you back a year before that. I grew up in Edmonton. I was nothing special as far as a hockey player. I was probably above average, but I wasn't. No one's like, oh my God, there goes Jason Strudwick. I remember I tried out for a traveling team one summer, and my dad took me in. I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, you're trying out for a team. And so, and my dad didn't even know what it was all about. So I went, and I remember walking off the ice. On the way off the ice, the coach's like, "You didn't make it." And I'm like, "All right, I didn't even know you were the coach. I guess I'm not on it." So I was out. And so I finished grade 12. I didn't go to. I was trying to actually get a university scholarship. That was my hope, and my hope was maybe play for the Golden Bears, a university team here in Edmonton. And that year we won like 6 games. I was on an awful team. And then you fast forward a year, after finishing our season in March. The next March, I'm on one of the best teams in the Western Hockey League, win a Memorial Cup, and then get drafted. So like my hockey world just completely, flipped in really, really short order. And I tell people that story all the time because everyone's got their own path to the NHL. It's not always a direct path of Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby. There's a lot of guys that have the zigzag, and all of a sudden out of nowhere they're in the NHL. So when I arrived there, I was an 18-year-old rookie, and I arrived with Joe McGinley. Shane Doan's in his second year. I think Tucker was in his third year or fourth year. But you know what? I was so naive as a hockey guy. I just loved playing the game, and these are my buddies. I think that after that first year, after we won, I quickly kind of learned what hockey's about, or sorry, that part of the hockey, like the business side. And I could tell that Darcy Tucker was a competitor, and Shane Doan a man child, and Ginla and Baumgartner and all these guys. And then I think after that second year we went through, I think that's where I really started to understand, because I didn't think I'd ever play in the NHL till the morning I got drafted. When the mighty New York Islanders drafted me, that was the first time I actually envisioned myself as a guy who could play in the NHL. Before that, I honestly thought I was going to play 3 years of Western League. They were going to give me 4 years of scholarship for that. I was going to play for U of A Golden Bears, and I actually wanted to be an accountant. So right now I'd be an accountant on your podcast, if it had worked out differently.
So at the same time, you like walk into this room, how do you then like define yourself? Because like you're, like from all the guys I've always had on, you're always one of our biggest characters, and you have this like great personality, but at the same time, you're saying you're walking into this room and you're kind of, you don't really know what it's supposed to be like, because in your mind, you're envisioning, going to the CIS, playing for, the Golden Bears. And then you step into, as Steve was saying, like this dynasty of a junior hockey team. So like, what is Jason Strudwick at that age walking into that room with these players that I assume you've heard about at that time, because they're, similar to your age group, and trying to fit in and be on this team?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't really know them. Like I that's the thing. Like I I was naive. Like I followed the NHL and I followed the Oilers, but I didn't I wasn't tracking where I was rated, or there weren't even rated people then, right? Or I didn't really know, like, before going to kamloops, I didn't know who Darcy Tucker was. I never heard of him. And just because I wasn't, that was like, and the thing I still love about hockey is competing. That's what I loved about it. I love competing. You can put me in front of this guy or that guy. I didn't care. I wanted to compete and try to beat that guy. So if you ask what I was like when I arrived in that room, I was a competitive person. Like, I don't really show it much when we talk or do interviews. And even now, I'm not, if we played, Monopoly, I don't care if I win or lose, but when we got on the ice, I wanted to make you have a bad day by shutting you down and hurting you in the process, and hurting you as far as, like, being a little dirty and sticky. That's what I love. I love that. I miss that today. So, when I arrived in that dressing room, no one knew who I was. I was on this bad midget program, and in the KCs in Edmonton. And I remember going there, so I'm going to compete. And I competed as hard as I could. And I was kind of a middling player till Christmas. And the GM, the coach, brought me in. And I remember they said, if you're going to play here, you're going to have to fight sometimes. I'm like, oh man, like, I don't know if I want to fight. Like, look at this face, you don't have fit to fight. But I remember on the ride home, I talked to my roommate. He's like, he's right. You got to fight. And the funny thing, and sorry, not fight, but I have to play hard and be dirtier. And then you're gonna have to fight because of those actions. And I remember on the ride home, my roommate Sky Love says, if you do what they ask you, you're probably not gonna have to fight any more than you already do, because you're big and guys are gonna think you can fight, even though we both know you can't. And so I was like, all right, screw it. So I got in there and I started being a little harder and dirty and hitting guys. And he was right. I didn't have to fight any more than I was already fighting. So at least I was getting the benefit of being dirty and then maybe fighting someone. And, after Christmas, our team kind of took off. I think part of it was I became a fixture on the second pair defenseman. Shane Doan found his groove. Icky was a 16-year-old, so you can't, it's hard at 16. But our team really gelled. And, I'll never forget that moment. That was a huge moment in my hockey career. And where Don Hay and Bob Brown are telling me what to do. And my little bald roommate, Scotty Loups, is like, they're probably right. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And so I started to. And, here it is. It worked out pretty well.
So we go to your first NHL training camp. And one of the things we talk about on this podcast is gear and kind of the excitement as a young kid. You get into the New York Islanders system. What was that first experience like in terms of your training camp and getting new Islanders gear, and maybe walk us through what that was like?
Well, the year I was drafted late. So I didn't get drafted as an 18-year-old because I was playing on the worst midget hockey team in Canada. And then the next year I go to Kamloops and I get drafted in the third round. But that year there was a lockout, 94, 95. So there was no training camp for third rounders. So my first official training camp was when I was a 20-year-old. And that's when I wheeled in. So I've never been to an NHL camp, and I'm wheeling into a camp. I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? What do we do? What do we do here? There's other guys who've been to 2 training camps my same age, like Brian McCabe. He was there at the same time. He'd been to 2 camps. I was my first at 20. So I wheel in there, and I have no idea what's going on. And, I remember I got into a couple fights. And again, it was like, it just all of a sudden just happened. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why are these guys fighting me? And some of these guys could really fight, but it was awesome to get there. And the thing I remember most is not having to wear a visor. And now it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I loved not wearing a visor. I loved, you felt like in the big leagues, a number in the back. I think my number was like 2002. Like it was, there's no way this guy's making it. And I flew down there, and you got to remember, like, this was before email. So we're getting a letter inviting me to training camp. So it says, bring all your stuff. So I didn't have a lot of stuff. I didn't have a lot of, I didn't have a car or anything. So I flew there with like a bag of clothes in my hockey bag and some sticks. And like, hey, let's play some hockey. And like, no clue, like absolutely no clue. So we played hockey. And I was one of the last cuts that year. And then I got sent down to the minors. And so down there, I had to buy like a car. I didn't have a car. I had to buy a car to find a place to live. I never found a place to live. Like me and this other guy, Eric Fichot, he was a really highly regarded goalie. He could barely speak English. I could speak French. So he's like, do you want to be roommates? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, so he and I are trying to find an apartment in this Worcester, Massachusetts. And we have no idea what's going on. We're like, how much is this a good price? Like for renting? We had no clue. Luckily we had older guys that helped us out. But at 20, we didn't really know. Like, you're in junior, everything's kind of done for you.
What car did you get?
I bought a used, it's called, it's like oh my God, it's like a little Cherokee, Jeep Cherokee, a used one. And I remember, I think I paid like 15 grand. And I was just...